second.
Counting it down, Byron.
Built in a little extra time there.
Counting it down.
He is. He always counts it.
You know, I don't know why, but that's a thing.
It is a thing. I like it.
It's a state board meeting.
Good morning. I would now like to call to order the April 13th, 2022 meeting of the Indiana State Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bess.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. DeLosa.
Here.
Mr. Durham.
Present.
Dr. Ernest.
Here.
Dr. Freitas.
Present.
Mr. Gastineau.
Here.
Mr. Mapes.
Here.
Ms. Moat.
Here.
Ms. Renschler.
Here.
Mr. Watts.
Here.
Dr. Jenner.
Here.
And can we have a quorum?
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Want to do the pledge?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, we need to do the pledge. You are all trying to signal me. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Yes, thank you.
Instead of signaling, you just should have said pledge.
You all were signaling. I appreciate that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I tell you, it takes a team, and that was representative of that, so thank you. Is there now a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the March 9th, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So a few quick updates. First of all, we have some weather, spring season, some potential weather coming in, so it's a great time to call out our school safety specialists and all of the people who keep an eye on the weather for our students. Obviously, we see that in the winter, but most certainly we see that in the spring with severe thunderstorms and potential tornado watches. So wanted to give them a shout out. We also always try to keep an eye on when one of our board members gets an award or recognition or honor. And Pat Mapes was named District 2 Administrator of the Year by the Indiana Basketball Coaches Association. So wanted to make sure you had that shout out. If you want to make a speech shortly, you're welcome to. We'll be glad to listen.
He did. That was thank you.
Yeah, I read that. And I'm like, I don't know how you get that, but good for Pat. That's good. Also, our schools we had in the spring, in March, we had our iRead testing and more on that to come in the coming months as we look at data and really press the accelerator on literacy. Despite what any COVID impact, we just keep pushing on making sure our kids can read. We also are getting ready to kick off on Monday, iLearn. Last year we had, if my memory serves me, one of the highest rates of participation in the nation, around 97-98%. And the win from that is because we were then as a state able to really dig in and analyze where our students are after COVID. Not in any other way other than just to try to triage and support our schools to improve. So we'll be looking to kick off iLearn on Monday. Two other updates I wanted to make sure that the board is aware of. We launched last week the Explore, Engage, and Experience grant. We're calling it the 3 E's grant. That is very student pathways focused. If we want students to make sure that they have maximum doors open for them upon high school graduation, regardless if they employ, enroll, or enlist, leading to service. We want to make sure that happens, and we have to have intentional experiences at the high school level, which those are two priorities. The first priority of that grant is greater access for our students for post-secondary credentials of value. And the second priority there is increasing high-quality work-based learning. Obviously, work-based learning is new terrain for us in Indiana and really most states across the nation. We have some schools that have leaned in, and we hope to learn from them. And then the secondary priority of this, again, hits those other E's. In order to set students up for experiences at that high school level, we have to make sure students are exploring, engaging in elementary and middle school, and getting that fire lit within them. So we're looking for creativity, innovation, and really what I have no doubt we'll see some pretty phenomenal partnerships with this work. And applications are available on the DOE's website due March 13th. The other update is not a competitive grant. It's just an update on the Educator supply-demand marketplace. I think we've talked about that before. In Indiana, like most states, we operate on significant lag data when it comes to our Educator pipeline. And again, make the best decisions and to triage and provide support, we have to best understand what our data looks like. So if you think about the old business teacher who taught you about supply demand, what is our supply in our teacher prep and training programs active right now? What is our demand in our schools in real time? And is our supply connecting with our demand? Or the example that I've frequently used, if Purdue University, and this is not an actual example, love the Boilermakers, if Purdue University has 6 students in courses to become high school biology teachers, are those teachers recruited to a biotech company down the road before they ever get into the classroom? And so we just really need to understand that process. Dr. Rebecca Estes is leading that for our team and is engaging with schools across the state as well as teacher prep programs as we build that out. The first iteration of that is out, so the demand side is out, the supply side is being built. And I will also say, we've heard from schools across the state, and we know this is a nationwide challenge, that yes, it's our teachers that we need, and it's also bus drivers, custodians, so on and so forth. So this marketplace shows, you can go on, anyone's welcome to go on, it shows every position that is posted, regardless of certified, non-certified. So that is an update.
Hey,
Yes,
on
sir.
that, are we looking at the teacher prep programs in the state and the number of kids who enter the program when they're freshmen or sophomores, and then whether or not they're completers, and if they're not completers, why did they change? I mean, if you've been there and you're in that program for 3 years, and then all of a sudden, what happened?
Yeah,
Did they not get that first field experience early enough to really make the decision to enter the profession? Because that could give us a false kind of number of what we think's in the pipeline.
Sure.
So I would be interested, I guess, in
Yeah.
to see what that looks like as well. And that was something back in 2009, 2010 that we were looking at one time.
Right.
It's just, where are those kids at if they entered the program? And we constantly heard that the biggest thing that was needed is that when you're a freshman in college, you need some field experience. I mean, you need to get into a school and really understand what you're signing up for.
Sure. So I think, as you started on that line of questions, and there are probably more questions that other members have, I think we will invite Dr. Rebecca Estes, probably not at the May meeting, because that's going to be Indiana GPS update for the
Yeah.
board, but maybe in the summer, we'll have Dr. Rebecca Estes come, and just like we're having a couple people here today presenting, we'll do that on
Yeah.
the supply-demand marketplace, and we can talk through that. Just like several of the things we're building as a team here, including the Indiana GPS, it's iterations. I mean, a lot of this it's brand new, right? So we'll build it out in iterations. But we'll plan to do that.
There's some federal Title II reporting that the colleges have to do, that there will be information there.
Yes, and that information we get, but I'm not sure if it gets to the point you made about the real why on the exit interview. So was kind of processing, but Dr. Estes will know more. Good question. So today we'll be hearing from Dr. Nancy Holsapple. We have several strategic focuses to recruit special education teachers, recruit, retain, and Dr. Holsapple is going to give a presentation about that to update the board. And then Diana Smith is also going to give us a presentation update on the Indiana Learning Lab, which Diana will likely give some of the history of that. But what's really special about the Indiana Learning Lab is it started locally, and then we saw it's a state need, so it expanded statewide. So we will hear about both of those today. Are there any board member comments and reports? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move to public comment. Levita Sparks Wade.
Don't start that timer yet.
He won't, I'll watch him.
Okay.
My eyes are on him.
3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
We drove a long way. If I run over a little bit, would you give us some grace? Thank you. Bless you. My name is Levita Sparks Wade. Madam President, to the other board members, thank you for this time. I am a parent, a lifelong resident of the city of Gary, matriculated through the Gary Community School Corporation, and only until recently did I move to another city. My son is a senior at the Westside Leadership Academy. I am a former councilwoman of the 6th District in the city of Gary, and I am the current second vice president of the Parent and Teachers and Student Association for Westside Leadership Academy. I'm a graduate of Lew Wallace High School. When the Gary Community School Corporation was a model for the country, not only am I disappointed, but I'm appalled, frustrated, and angry for the disparate treatment that we as parents, students, and community members have received through the state-sanctioned takeover of the largest African-American populated school corporation in the state of Indiana. Make no mistake about it, when former Indiana State School Superintendent Tony Bennett assisted in drafting the legislation for the state-sanctioned takeover, he had two things in mind: his own economic enrichment and to take over where the people wouldn't have a great uprising. At the last minute, they threw in Muncie. And that, I believe, was to give an appearance of not being racist. Even though no abuse, no egregious mismanagement or corruption was discovered in Gary, our elected school board was eliminated. We have no power. We have no voice. We were assigned an emergency manager. There have been 3 since the takeover began, and this third one is the absolute worst. Whereas Muncie was allowed to partner with Ball State, they received an appointed board, even though they mismanaged $10 million in money, in funds, misappropriated. We have no power. And now we have House Bill 1514 that has become law, eliminating school takeovers, but the Gary School Corporation was left out of that legislation. Muncie was released, even though they demonstrated egregious behavior. We are still in the same situation that we were in 5 years ago. They decided, MGT did, that's the managing corporation, to pave the parking lot of Westside Leadership Academy on the first day of school after we returned from being off from COVID. It was a hot mess. They totally disregarded the inconvenience of parents and expected us to say, thank you. They totally looked over the fact that children were coming back to school after being off for so long and had no mental health assistance at all. There were fights every single day. At its height, there were 10 fights in one day. They finally just kind of threw about 100 kids out of school, and they're now learning online. How that's being implemented, I have no idea. Fewer fights, but there are kids who are online who I'm sure are being left behind. My son was just inducted into the National Honor Society a couple weeks ago. He's a member of the band. He plays the tuba. We are very, very proud of him. We've been asking for band uniforms since he was a freshman. They finally got band uniforms that look like prison uniforms. With the millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that MGT has received to do everything that they are supposed to be doing, we don't have tissue in the bathrooms. We don't have soap in the dispensers. They should have renovated the bathrooms. They should have been putting in touchless soap dispensers and touchless paper towel dispensers. But that is not what's happening. We get an 8-ounce bottle of water up until the student protest a few weeks ago. An 8-ounce bottle of water for the entire day. I'm sorry, I'm finishing up. I am hoping that as a former councilwoman whose voice as a parent has not been heard, it's been dismissed and demonized, I am hoping that you, this board, look past the color of my skin and only see a parent who wants what's best for her child. We, as parents, community members, and stakeholders, hope that you would adopt our freedom agenda. Forgive the debt, restore local control, engage the community, employ a superintendent, designate funds for Roosevelt, operate on the funds to make them work for all of our children, and make monies available from COVID-19 to build a field house and make our buildings safe to stop the spread of COVID-19. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Lavetta Tyndall.
Good morning. My name is Lavetta Tyndall. I'm a resident of long-time resident of Gary, Indiana, graduate of the Roosevelt High School, co-parent of children that have graduated from the Westside High School. How long do we have to put up with millions of dollars being managed by someone who, in the name of education, have students receiving certificates of attendance instead of diplomas? How long do we have to endure having secondhand tiles being placed in our Westside Leadership Academy ceilings? How long do we have to put up with locked bathrooms during regular school hours and during special events when guests attend? Each morning, I'm told by one of the students, there's an announcement for the students to let them know which restrooms they're to use that day. The debt has been reduced. MGT has failed continues to fail to offer high-quality education and equitable education for all students and has got to go. MGT has money, and yet we don't have open communication. We don't have respect for parents, students, citizens. We don't have professionalism. We don't have experienced people working, such as the special ed supervisor. There's money in hand, but lower grades, lower graduation rates continue. MGT represents for us failure, and falsehoods. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we can engage in a conversation about our kids in schools without addressing concerns that include toilets and outhouses and manner or facilities for relieving oneself? We've got money, but there are no pools at Westside. We've got money, but we've got too many locked restrooms at Westside Leadership Academy. We of the Gary Community School Corporation have no rights, no voice regarding personnel selection, nor do we have a voice regarding the use of funds. There is no welcoming of parental involvement presently under the leadership and supervision of MGT. MGT has got to go. DUAB is failing to supervise the Gary Community School Corporation to the advantage of our students and our citizens. We need your help. We need your level of sensitivity to improve and increase regarding the lack of education of our schools, our students in the Gary system. Madam Secretary Jenner, at your last meeting, parents were referred to as partners in education. However, Gary Community School Corporation administration fails to communicate or practice that concept. We need MGT out of our lives. We need DUAB to be corrected in the way that they are supervising MGT, because with DUAB continuing in the position that they hold, there seems to be an active, not agreement, I can't think of the word, but they're supporting MGT. They're supporting whatever MGT is doing. I don't know how many of you and anyone else is involved in the millions of dollars that are being handled by MGT, but they are not being handled to the advantage of our students. Therefore, they're not being handled to the advantage of our city. You're crippling our students, and you're crippling our city. The other issue is, that's wonderful. The rumor is that our students, our principals of our school corporation have been instructed, don't retain any students. What does that mean? That means the appearance is that success is being achieved by the schools if there are no retentions. That means another falsehood is being promoted and practiced by the current administration. Such activities need to stop. And if you don't do something about it, then we can only think that you're condoning what's going on in that system. And you too are rendering us to a crippling state. And we need your help to make a change for the better, for our city, for our citizens, for our students. Our students are not being prepared to compete on a global level. Other students in other areas are. We need your input. We need positive, favorable input from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Coleman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Robert Coleman. I'm a child of God, husband, father of a Gary Community School Corporation child, which is the valedictorian this year at Westside Leadership Academy. I'm also a Westside Leadership Academy PTSA president and the 3rd District School Advisory Board representative until Paige McNulty and Robert Buggs cooked up a scheme to get rid of Miss Carter, Miss Reedus, and myself. I never resigned, but when you ask questions for true numbers, follow the money, and ask about the education of our children, you get replaced or might come up like Jimmy Hoffa in this society, replaced. I have sent many letters to our representatives, DUAP, MGT, McNulty, the State Board of Education, et cetera, about the conditions of our school system, like the bad conditions of the restroom or bathrooms, no soap, paper towels, tissues, stall doors, et cetera. You can look at the photos Gary Community Schools Corporation posted on Facebook bragging. If you zoom in on the pictures, you will see rusty pipes sticking out the wall, missing sinks, soap on top of the dispensers, all the paper towel holders not filled, lady product holders, no supplies or plastic bags. Why? We don't have handleless sinks, handless touchless toilets, handless touch water fountains, and McNulty had the nerve to say, don't ask her about bathrooms no more, like we are slaves. Why there's no air purification systems? Why our children food quality have went down? Why our graduation rate have went down? I'm talking about the children that's actually getting a diploma. Why our children don't have a field house? Why our children are disrespected and treated like prisoners? Why our children don't have a clean study environment, missing ceiling tiles, bats flying in the building. It took the children walk out in protest of them saying they deserve better on the educational and environmental side for MGT to start duct taping, what I call it, or putting up a facade. It's been 3 years since the PTSA asked for new ceiling tiles, and they just duct taped it 2 weeks ago by putting up old ceiling tiles, not new. Menards have ceiling tiles on sale, $5 a tile, plus you get 11% back. Why? Why? There are millions of dollars. Why? Like one representative said, it's in a slush fund. The State Board of Education need to end this takeover. Help us, like it was done for other Southern Indiana schools. If you want our freedom, let me hear you say freedom. Freedom! Okay, F is for forgive Gary Community School debt. R is for restore local control. E, engage in the community. E, employ a superintendent. D, designate funds to make Roosevelt a museum. O, operate the funds to make the work of our children. M, make monies from the COVID available to build field housing and make all of our school buildings safe. So, State Board of Education, it is in your hands to help us get rid of this takeover. Help us draft something. I know you're supposed to keep religion from state and school, but in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, we deserve our freedom. If you all believe it, say freedom. Please help us get rid of these people. They're treating us wrong. Our teachers deserve better. Our teachers shouldn't have to work under this stress every day going to school. Our principals shouldn't have to be yes people in fear of losing their jobs. MGT gotta go. Please help us get our freedom. Freedom.
Thank you, Robert. Tracy Coleman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I thank God for the opportunity to be here. That was my husband before me. And the greatest gift we have is our child. And so it's frustrating. 3 years ago, I spoke before you all, and this is Roosevelt, where the conditions became so atrocious that it was just obvious. Edison has to go. And as we reflect on this Easter holiday, I'm not asking you to be Charlton Heston and say, let my people go, or Paul Robeson and sing it, but we need you to get to the governor, to the Indiana General Assembly, and say, let my children go. Because even though my husband and I have one son at Westside, you all have about 5,000 children in our school system who need your help. And so it becomes an issue. If you're truly data-driven, just like you did Roosevelt, MGT would be out of here. But then it becomes, what else do they have to do? Okay, we've been before you. Okay, the kids got bread for breakfast. You know you wouldn't give your child bread for breakfast. Okay, Westside Leadership Academy. I'm dealing with the speech and debate mock trial team. And it was hard because, once again, fighting for your children. They finally get to compete, but our children are in the library trying to find a place where the holes aren't above them. So the other kids at other schools don't see what they have to go through. But then I think, oh my God, October 2019, we go to the right people. We let them know what's going on. So God help us that our next Supreme Court Justice, our future Supreme Court Justice at Westside, doing a beautiful job. The reality for that child is she's sitting in the library trying to make sure the holes don't show while other kids get to study and work on their opening. Our children, it needs to stop. Because if you're data-driven, when that graduation rate at Westside went from 86.2% to 58.5%, the person who cares about their 5,000 children in Gary would be, what is going on? When that takeover happened and our dropout rate went from 0 to 49, where 49 students left, if they're your children, you would say, what happened? What happened, McAdams? What happened, McNulty? Where are these children going? So while DUAB gets to take victory laps and say, hey, the money's good, we got the profit, guess what? If you go to, we had 24 kids who won gold medals at ISMA and went to 0. So on the books, if you're not registering kids for ISMA, if you're not buying them sausage and bacon, guess what? Your books are gonna look good because you're putting profits over our children. So while Indiana is a state where we say, oh, we love home rule, we believe that if you're a parent and you're connected and you see those holes in the ceiling and you see your child eating bread, that control should be to you so you can go to your school board. We don't even have that in Gary. We gotta wake up at 3:30 and go to Indianapolis and just pray, Somebody will listen. So I will ask you all, just like with Roosevelt, where it became, okay, it's not working, the children are getting hurt, we gotta get Edison out of there, we need MGT to go. You all have the ear of the governor. You all have the ear of the Indiana General Assembly. We're in Gary, you're here. We need you to say, let my children go. If you can't treat them right, this isn't the country we live in where our kids have to be subjected to that. This is why we pledge allegiance. This is the democracy that we want. So please, just like you got Roosevelt and we got it back, we need our school corporation back, and we need this board to not look the other way. Silence is complicity. We need this board to let all these leaders know, let my children go. We're gonna help these children in Gary, and we're gonna put the money with them and not these for-profit corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Natalie Amons.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We want to know what's going on with our schools in Gary. Jim Crowism at its best. Today, there are no positive results from the takeover, and those who displayed before people who appear to be practicing Jim Crow in 2022. There, 5 years ago, the school corporation graduation rate was 92%. Today, it's at 49%. Testing of elementary and middle schools, test scores are worse than they have been in 5 years. Core 40 is at the lowest in the state. Post-secondary education, the lowest, okay? Day-to-day attendance, it's the lowest. and you're continuing to say that the state skills are successful, that we're successful at this with the takeover. All indicators, and you want us to continue, the indicators are all incorrect. You all are being fed a bill of goods. Here, I sit in Gary every day, and to the young lady, because I checked all of you out before I got here, because I wanted to know where you live. And no one, there's one, with the one exception, that lives in my area, and she has 6 students that attend Lake Central, okay? Fine, but when you talk about coming into the entire Gary school system, you sent MGT up there to do a job. They have not. You guys are being duped, okay? When they got rid of people, they did all the other things they said, but we actually noticed. Let's start with their campaign to open up the media center, and they're hiring all these people that don't have degrees, okay? They don't have the degrees, that do not have anything to do with education, but they're giving their friends jobs at the tune of $70,000. How's that helping our children? I see that there's a problem that's continuing. You mentioned, Ms. Jenner, the one thing you talked about, maximum doors open with graduations. How do you do that with a certificate of participation? Don't you need a diploma for the maximum doors to open? That's not what they're doing to our children in Gary, Indiana. And then I want to know why everybody outside of Gary wants to control Gary when you don't even live there. You don't know the problems of our children. You don't know the resolve for that. You don't know the struggles. So why are you missing? Why don't you come up there and sit in the classrooms, walk the hallways, talk to people, and see what level we're at? Don't just sit here in this room and accept the reports and the data. You're being lied to. You can always take a number and move it around and say, oh, you know, it was a mistake. Because we get that from Dr. Page all the time. She will tell us one thing, and then the next time when she's asked about something, you know what she says? That's not quite the way I meant it. Also, she ran in a position, or she ran a referendum through our community, a community that's already stretched and suffering. She deceived the people with that, and it was not her position or her role to do that. So when we start sending people in to do things and work with our community, don't keep practicing the Jim Crow-isms. Our children deserve better. They need better. They need a better world. And we all, whatever we can do and whatever I can do, I'm going to be at the forefront fighting for the children. And I don't even have any in the Gary school system. My children went through the Gary school systems already. They graduated. And when my daughter went away to college, you know what the problem was for her and my granddaughter? They told her that what she learned in school, what she was taught, it didn't make the mark. So she had to go into a year of remedial classes, into a program. Is that fair? I think not. I say not. Our children deserve better. We deserve local control because we're there every day and we know what's going on. And so why would you let people come in and accept what they say and not visit the people who are there to know what's actually going on? Because you would be surprised. So I say today, our limitations are the ones that we place on ourselves. We should have no limitations, but we have limitations because they've been placed on other people, on us by other people. And that's not fair to our children. If we truly believe that the children are the future of tomorrow, then we wouldn't have these low rates and these low graduation things that we're dealing with. Our children would have better. When they came into the COVID system, you know how far back? Because even with MGT there, they hadn't supplied them with Chromebooks or MacBooks to do their homework. But one community over, it was at the Bell. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're about 20 seconds from 5 minutes.
20 seconds. Other schools had books and laptops so the children could go home and do their homework. And if they missed a day of school, they could still be online to do their work. Gary didn't have that. And they're still struggling with it. So in order to come back from COVID or to have education or have learning from COVID, one of the things, they had to start from underneath the bottom and then try to work their ways to the top. And they're still behind. So if you want to do something for somebody today, make the decision to end the control of MGT here and give us back local control over our students.
Thank you, Natalie. Kendra Johnson.
Good afternoon, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, and I forgot something here. My name is Kendra S. Johnson, and for over 25 years, I was a parent in the Gary Community School Corporation. And pardon me if my voice is a little shaky, but I want to show you something. This is a picture of my grandson, DeAnthony Frierson, whom I lost in a fire in 2016. He was a student at Bethune Preschool, and he loved school. Me as a parent, I spoke at the public meeting when I asked that Roosevelt not be taken over by the state. You didn't listen. It was one of 4 schools that the state was considering taking over. The other 3 schools didn't get taken over. Roosevelt did. Now Roosevelt is closed. I appeared at the State House before Tim Brown asking that the Gary Community School Corporation not be taken over. Didn't listen. And since the takeover of the state, all of our schools received an F rating. I appeared before various school board meetings, even asked that one of the gentlemen that was recommended by the state to be the chief financial officer not be brought in because he came from Detroit and he messed up Detroit's public school corporation. Didn't listen. I've appeared at public meetings. I have spoken on behalf of low-income parents and families because I was a low-income parent. And it was mentioned earlier that we don't put the Bible in the school. But I'm going to quote something that was in the Bible. In the Bible, it says, God hears the poor. They have his ear. And it also states what happens when you don't listen to them. And it's a shame not to be listened to. Since MGT took over, I missed one of the greatest events in my life. My youngest son's high school graduation. It happened during COVID, of course, but I wasn't notified when the graduation would be. And he wasn't either, because they kept changing it back and forth. So he came to me and said, Mama, forget going to graduation. I'm gonna go to work and make me some money, because they didn't care enough about us to inform us. 6 children I raised. Only 2 graduated out of the Gary community. 3 graduated. The oldest 2 before the state took over, but only 1 after the state took over, because the other 3 were persecuted and labeled. But when they went elsewhere, outside the city, outside the state, they were accepted and put in leadership positions. What does that say about the state of Indiana? You wonder why there's accusations of racism? Look at the history. Look at the history. And then you'll see and understand. I look at the salaries paid to MGT emergency managers. Yes, the budget's been brought down, but at what cost to our children? How many of those children did not get the education they deserved, that they needed? So when they left Gary to go to college elsewhere, or even remain in Gary to go to college, that it became, that they had to take remediary because the education they received was substantial. And it wasn't because of our educators. Oh, I could talk about some of the great educators we have and had. But it's because of the pressure being put on them to go along with the program instead of standing up for our students. As I said, I'm a former parent, grandparent, employee of the Gary Community School Corporation. I am a parent advocate recognized by the Indiana Civil Rights Commission for the work that I've done. So maybe I should stand here and say, don't give the control of Gary Community Schools back to Gary. And then you'll listen and give it back to them, because I wasn't listened to beforehand, and our children have paid the price. I could have each of my 6 children call you and tell you what problems they've had. I praise God. The only reason my children were successful was because there were educators that cared. My kids themselves cared about having a future. And I instilled in them their value. And even now, let me tell you this, your money paid for me to get Title I training. And guess what? I came back and tried to train parents. And guess what? I still train parents. You didn't pay me a salary, but your money sent me to get an education at taxpayers' cost. And even now, I still try to educate parents on rights and responsibilities. I'm willing to work with you, and I can even give you names of excellent individuals who can help Gary schools get back to the way they should be. But the question is, will you listen? Will you listen? And I ask, and I end now, for the sake of our children, the ones that have been hurt in the past, the ones that have been hurt now, and our children that are coming in the future, that you work with me and break the accusations of the past and show our children they are worth investing in so that they can come back and invest in us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra, and thank you for the public comments today. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion approved. New business today, we have none officially, other than several discussion items. So, on that note, we'll start with Indiana Special Education Assisted Licensure Update, the Iseal program. So, Dr. Hosepple, I believe your presentation is up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Nancy Hosapple. I am the Special Education Director at the department. And a little back history, why this is so important to me. I have 36 years of special education behind me, and I cannot speak to this project without acknowledging Scott and Risa, who worked alongside. What I want to share today is what we're terming Iseal, the Indiana Special Education Assisted Licensure, and I'm going to provide to you an update. So the purpose of the Iseal was to address the special education teacher shortage in Indiana, and through a partnership with SEL, we were able to address this. This project, the goals, we're looking to try to get teachers licensed in an expedited way. We want to streamline the coursework. And of course, we're offering financial support. In order for someone to get accepted into the program, they must apply. They have to complete the university's application. They have to provide a copy of their college transcripts, a copy of their current license, and if needed, a background check. The focus of this was to look at mild intervention. So in Indiana, we have mild intervention, intense intervention, deaf and hard of hearing, and blind and low vision. The largest gap that we have for licensed teachers is in the mild intervention. And Indiana serves 182,000 plus students with disabilities across the state. So our goal was to make sure our teachers are getting licensed. The contract that we have with Iseal U of Indy, it is funded by Title II ESSERS and Part B money. This is set up to continue until 2024, and then Part B, my money, will then continue to help address this shortage. So in order for educators who are licensed in another subject, and many times folks with a teaching license will start teaching, and then they have an interest in special education. So those folks would like to get that license added so they can participate in the fully funded 18 credit hour graduate program. These are being offered through University of Indianapolis, Taylor, and Indiana Wesleyan. Educators licensed in another subject, so they have to have their degree. It has to be from an accredited institution, and then they have to be employed by an Indiana school. They have to maintain their current licensure. Part of the development of this was we wanted a letter of support from the school administrators because we understand the importance of getting teachers licensed in their buildings. And we also want school administrators to have that ownership as well. The other component is they have to have a signed letter of intent to remain employed in Indiana as a special education teacher for 2 years after the completion. Individuals currently enrolled in a special ed prep program, so maybe they were under the emergency permit, they had 2 years of coursework, they still needed 1 more, but they are enrolled in a typical program, not a T2T, they can participate in this as well. They would have to follow the previous expectations, enroll, provide the information that's required, and then they could also get support with their coursework and textbooks. Currently, the participants who are enrolled in the prep program, we have a larger number of teachers who are currently on an emergency permit that we are moving to an alternate licensure through that. And they provided that information, to their superintendent, to their building administrator, saying, here's an opportunity, I can get my full license in special education, I need your support, here are the requirements. They enrolled into the program, and they completed all of the requirements as previously stated. We have some who do not have an education background. So we have paraprofessionals or folks that work in our buildings who love working with kids. They have a bachelor's degree, but it may not be in education. Those folks can also participate. They have to follow the listed requirements. They can enroll in one of 10 T2T programs that we have offered throughout the state of Indiana. So we're trying to broaden not just those with education background, but those who have experience with education. That would be a super teacher. We want them to be encouraged to participate in this as well. The current transition to teach programs that we have in Indiana that special education is offered through this, I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can see those T2T programs. This, it talks about the non-ed bachelor degree. They currently have to follow these same guidelines as the others. They also have to be enrolled in the T2T program, so when they approach their administrator or superintendent for confirmation, they have to provide proof that they are enrolled. Another caveat to this is oftentimes we will hear from administrators, I have this wonderful teacher, they just cannot pass that exam. So part of the funding for this is to allow those who struggle with that exam that they could get tutoring, if you want to call it that. So upcoming, we have one May 14th and May 21st. Those are Zoom. They are an hour and a half. They are administered by a U of ND professor. And once the applicant takes the exam and passes, then this funding will reimburse them for their test. Currently, we have 153 school districts participating throughout the state, and each Tuesday, I get an update from SEL on the number of folks who have applied for the program. And when this first rolled out, we had maybe 20, that first month, and I was a little nervous, but now we're up to over 400 participants. Here are the institutions, and we listed them by the license. So if you look at Indiana State University for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program, they have 18 participants. To Taylor University, who are, their focus is on intense intervention, and they have 21 participants. And then the last three are listed on this. To Grace College, who has one participant. So the initials, the MI is for mild intervention, intense intervention, deaf and hard of hearing, blind and low vision. So I'm really excited about this opportunity for our schools in Indiana. We published information through Dr. Jenner's newsletter, the Office of Special Ed. We submit a newsletter to the field once a month. I attend ICASE executive meetings. I've shared with special education directors, as well as RISA, who's spoken at principals meetings. So we continue to get the word out there, and my goal is our number of folks who are on emergency permit that are fully licensed people, they continue to rise. So, any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Holsapple. One thing I do want to emphasize is this was totally a problem that was facing us, is facing everywhere. I applaud your team. And also we have several special ed partners in the room who I know came together at that table right in the beginning to find a solution. And so Hannah and Joe and others, thank you for leaning in and coming up with some solutions here. We appreciate it. Other questions, comments?
Can I just ask one? Great work.
Thank you.
You know I'm a fan of yours, so, but great work. What, the rule of having to have a bachelor's degree, even if it's outside of education, where does that come from? I just want to know for myself. In this case, where does that come from? Is that a federal piece?
It is, IDEA.
Okay. I thought that, but I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Madam Secretary?
Yes, sir. I think that is Dr. Freitas.
Yes.
I recognize your voice. Yes, sir.
Good morning. This is a wonderful program, and thanks so much for spearheading it. I do have some questions from a positive perspective. That is, I'm trying to assess the scope of the shortage at this point. So let me ask a few questions to dig a little deeper. For example, what percentage of special education teachers in Indiana right now are on an emergency license of some kind?
We ran that number last year almost immediately. I'm afraid to say it out loud. Dr. Freitas, let me get back with you on that. I don't want my memory to get put in public comment. So we'll get back with you on that data point. It was over 1,000, I'll tell you that. And we also peeled that data back by school corporation, and we'll make sure you have that data as well.
Okay, my second question deals with the universities participating, and I commend them for participating in this. I do, however, I think there are a few institutions missing that have T2T, transition to teaching and special ed, are not listed. Is there some reason for that? Did they decide not to participate? So my question deals with how are universities invited to participate in this?
Scott, do you? It was my understanding that the universities work with U of Indy and they have that memorandum of understanding because of the exchange of money. So when I have my weekly meetings with Dana Jones, she did indicate that some universities were just a little reluctant because of the fiscal piece. They want to make sure if they have 5 people enrolled in their program that they truly get the money for that. So any one of these T2T programs they could have participated, and I think moving forward, once this really gets up and running, there may be more. I know I serve as a reviewer for Scott in a lot of programs where they are developing new licensure for mild and intense because they understand the need of special education teachers and the shortage across the state and across the United States. So I believe more are trying to get on board in helping address that shortage.
So if I knew of an institution, a university that has T2T and special education is not listed, would it be fair to say they were invited and for whatever reason decided not to participate?
They could still be in the process. So I know it takes, there is the process to make sure that they are working with the SEL program, and we can get a more definitive answer from SEL on the programs who maybe were offered and declined and the reasons behind those for you.
Yes, I don't need the reasons why they declined. I just want to be sure that every university in Indiana who submitted and received approval for a T2T program in special education was invited. And personally, I think they all should be invited, and if there's some reason they decide not to participate, that's fine. But I'm just very surprised to see at least 1 or 2 universities that have rigorous special education T2T programs not there. So I just want to be sure they receive an invitation.
Yeah, so Dr. Freitas,
Right.
I thank you for your point, and I tell you what, I don't know that we have many school districts in the state who do not have a special education teacher shortage, and so I'm sure that all of us would love for any university to lean in and be a part of the solution. And so if there are universities that you see that are not on the list as of now, let them know, connect them. We'll be glad to, if you want to share the names forward, we'll be glad to make sure we reach out to them and make sure they have the opportunity. I mean, we need all hands on deck on this, so I appreciate your point.
Super, and I want everyone to have the opportunity to be part of this great program. My final question is, how does this program, how is it different than the transition to teaching program in special ed, or is it one and the same?
I believe it's one and the same. The caveat is the scholarship funding because, we hear various reasons why people don't go into education or why they leave education, but the fiscal piece of giving them the opportunity to get their license and they can participate through the TTT or a typical undergrad program or grad program, that they then have the financial support to that.
And thank you for that. As you may know, students who are interested in teaching, whether it be special education or other areas, one of the major problems or obstacles to an education we see is the financial component. So adding that financial component will have hopefully a great effect on a number of students and frontally address the shortage that we do have. So thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, and up to 400 right now, right? 400. So thank you, Dr. Holzapfel, Director of Special Education. Appreciate it. This time we'll have any other questions. I didn't want to cut that off. Erica, did you come off mute? Sorry.
That's okay.
Dr. Holzapfel has left the podium, but I'll do the best I can. How about that? She can come back up. We have one more question.
I just wanted to say thank you to her and her team for creating this program. It is so needed. It is so needed. And that financial component, that support there is definitely necessary. I do know that there are still several educators or people that are interested in becoming special educators that are still not aware of the program. Many schools that have really not pushed that this program is available. How can we increase that communication so more people can take advantage of this opportunity?
That's an ongoing work, but I will share just another thing that I'm helping to get the information out. This summer, I'm working with Dr. Estes on some teacher summits in the northern and the southern and central part of Indiana, and I will be attending those to make sure those who are in attendance are aware of this program. We will continue through our means of communication. I think RISA works closely with the Principals Association. Dr. Jenner has her connections, that we can get this information out.
And you and I both presented, I'm trying to remember, I think iCase, I don't want to start, but we've presented. So Erica, if you, as a special education director, if you have ideas for us too, on how we can get the word out, I think we're in a time where it's information overload. There's constantly stuff coming at everyone, and so we're just going to need to keep on sharing the information, and we're glad to hear your thoughts too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Holzapfel. Diana Smith is the Director of Digital Learning. And we would love to hear an update on the Indiana Learning Lab. So thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, hello, I'm Diana Smith. I'm the Director of Digital Learning here at the Department of Education, and I'm here representing the rest of the digital learning team to share with you a project that each of them works on every day, and that project is the platform called the Indiana Learning Lab. The Indiana Learning Lab is a website, a platform that supports teachers, administrators, and parents, and provides resources, professional learning, and all kinds of support, all centered around the idea that virtual and blended and digital learning needs to be high quality. Now, the Learning Lab, at first glance, is essentially a website, but what makes it innovative is through the partnership that powers the resources and the website itself. And that partnership exists between 5 Star Technology and the department. This is an innovation in the way that we are evolving our support of educators. And right now, the Learning Lab has over 21,000 users and is actually a finalist for the Mira Innovation of the Year Award, which is really exciting. We'll find out the results of that award later on this month.
And I want to pause you there because the power of this is historically, again, this started in Marion County with a lady named Claire Fidian Green, Fairbanks Foundation, who called several superintendents. I think you were one. I think Alicia Johnson was one. Several others, to say we need to do everything we can to triage the COVID situation for our teachers and build this resource hub. So I want to share that because, again, the power of innovation locally, this is an example of the power of innovation locally that when it works, we can, and it's needed other places, we can scale it. The other thing I wanted to point out is this time last year, we've been following this data closely on increase. This time last year, we were maybe at a couple thousand on a good day, right? And so she just said 21,000, over 21,000. So I want you to just know, I mean, the trajectory is pretty incredible on this. This is really for Indiana educators, parents, families, by Indiana educators, which is powerful. I know you've helped on this too, BJ and others. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to level set as you were sharing your numbers, the power of what your team has helped to continue to scale.
Yeah, it's been a pretty incredible growth. In August of 21, we had 6,000 when the department came on as a partner, and so we're at 21,000 today, and that's something that we check and celebrate every single day. And to Dr. Jenner's point, this really was something that started long before I came onto the department, long before COVID, but the idea was finally funded and lifted off the ground kind of during COVID, and so it started again, locally with the Indianapolis Virtual Learning Fund, with some other partners, including, like you mentioned, Fairbanks, also Lilly Foundation, the College Football Playoff Foundation, and also the Mayor's Office of Educational Innovation. And those partners kind of got that lifted off the ground. And it was centered a lot in the beginning around connectivity and devices for students during the pandemic, but some survey data during that time showed that there was more to be done, specifically teachers needed support in high quality virtual and blended learning. In August of 21, the department came on as a partner to sustain, grow, and evolve what that support looks like to grow it into a statewide initiative. So every single teacher and administrator in the state of Indiana actually already does have a free Learning Lab account. This is accessible to everyone in the state, parents as well. We've been doing a lot of work recently to make sure that parents and caregivers have a way to support their learners, whether they're learning using digital tools or completely in a virtual setting. And you're looking at a screenshot here of the Link Portal initiative from the department, just to kind of showcase that anyone who has an email address associated with a school, corporation, can credential through that link as a single sign-on option, just to make sure that we're making things as accessible as possible. So I want to spend the majority of my time with you today showcasing some of the features that the Learning Lab has for educators and parents. And the first is the live chat feature. This is something that we are utilizing as a way to make department staff a little bit more accessible to the field. And at any time throughout the day, an educator or an administrator or a parent can chat in on the website to ask a question. We get lots of questions about how to find resources and also just how to utilize digital tools, maybe some coaching questions from educators around how to use instructional technology. And during the hours of 1 to 3 every day, if a question comes in that is specific to the department, it's one of the digital learning team members that is responding to that in real time. Another component of the Learning Lab is the community feature. This is a way for practitioners to come together to have conversations around areas of interest. So it's essentially a platform for micro-learning. Department staff members have an opportunity to kind of highlight some initiatives or to share research pieces. It might be something that's, we get a lot of questions via email, so this is a great place to address some of those frequently asked questions. And then it also has a discussion board where educators can respond and share ideas. We have focused topics within the community around literacy, special education, STEM, and digital learning. There are thousands of self-paced resources in the Learning Lab as well. A lot of them are curated by 5-Star, but as Dr. Jenner mentioned earlier, this started in creation of lesson plans by Indiana teachers for Indiana teachers, and it's just kind of grown from there. Inside of those self-paced resources, you will find lessons, tutorials, and using different technology tools and videos. You can filter by content area or by audience. So I can filter by grade band, by administrative resources, parent resources, and also just by content area. And then you'll also find resources specific from the department uploaded into the Learning Lab. You will find all of our department frameworks inside of the Learning Lab, one-pagers, research briefs. For example, earlier in the year, we did a series on how to vet high-quality digital resources. The research behind that is available as a one-pager and as a video so that administrators and teachers can utilize that in their own local corporations for some professional development. There are also some self-paced courses available as well. Most recently, the teaching and learning team developed 2 courses on effective mathematics teaching practices that are, again, free for all Indiana educators to get in and take those courses. And everything that you do in the Learning Lab is tracked in a way that earns you professional growth points so that it makes it easy on teachers and administrators to renew their license when it is time. One of our most successful and probably my personal favorite, my favorite part of the Learning Lab is the live and the on-demand workshop page. And this is essentially every single day almost. There are tons of different workshops available for teachers to come and attend live or administrators to attend live to get some focused professional learning around different topics. And these are typically 30 minutes long. It's been a great platform to utilize to highlight some of the work that we're doing at the department as well, and it certainly has helped make some of that work more accessible and visible to the field. We do have a series that happens every single Wednesday live in the Learning Lab at 4 o'clock called Wednesday PD with IDOE, and this has been a great way for department staff members across teams and across the agency to share and highlight some of the work that we're doing to support educators in the state. So again, that happens every single Wednesday, and we have a sign up internally. We have a process internally that the digital learning team supports in making sure that everyone has that as a tool to share the work that we're doing. In fact, later today, I will be live in the lab at 4 o'clock with Dr. Estes to talk about some leadership skills that Simon Sinek wrote about in one of his books. So look for that later today.
So attend today at 4, if anyone's interested.
And this is the history report that I mentioned earlier. This is a huge selling point for why it's helpful to utilize the Learning Lab for tracking your PGPs, because at the end of anything that I do, if I'm in my Learning Lab account, every single activity that I've completed is recorded here in just one document that I can then upload to Elvis to renew my teaching license. It's really helpful, and people seem to really like that feature. 5-Star maintains a data dashboard that we also on the team have access to. So I mentioned we watch every single day how many users we have in the Learning Lab, and I'm not kidding. Yesterday we had 72 new users. I really do look at that every day. We're also big data nerds looking at, which resources are getting the most hits, what kind of modalities are the most helpful. Science of reading has been, huge at the top of that list lately, and so we know that people need more of that kind of content. And so it's really nice to have that partnership with 5-Star so that we can get in and have some transparency over the analytics to guide and evolve. I mentioned that this is a partnership in innovation in the way that we're supporting, and that really comes from responding to the data and the feedback that we get from educators who are using the platform. Every single live workshop is followed up by a feedback form that gives us suggestions for improvement or can request different topics. So that evolution is something that we are looking to take seriously every day. And I love that it's called the Learning Lab because it is sort of an experiment in how we're supporting educators. And it's not a finished product because it does truly evolve through that experimentation every day.
And that data analytics, just to mention, like when we started last January, we took a look at all 11,000 documents we had on the website at the time. You know, and some of the documents didn't have many touch points, and yet someone spent probably hours and hours and days building it, but it only had, you know, a few touch points. And so I can't emphasize that enough. Not only do we really do a lot of listening to our K-12 educators, but it also really goes back to what resource is being used. And if it's not being used, we don't need to spend any more time building it out. Let's focus on what our schools need. So I appreciate I love that you look at that number every day. So you keep doing that.
There was one person that joined the Learning Lab on Thanksgiving, and I love that piece of information.
You looked at that. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's above and beyond.
Just wanted to end by, again, thanking the rest of the digital learning team because they are the crew that manages that internal process, and they're always looking at how to make it easier for department staff members to upload and maintain and improve the resources that are being put into the Learning Lab, in addition to that partnership that we have with 5 Star. So we're excited about the work that we're doing, and we're happy to see that number and statewide usage grow every day, and I'm open to any questions.
Any questions? Yes,
Just
sir.
a comment, as someone who was in the room with CFG when this conversation
In the room
started.
where it happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
To see what it has evolved into is pretty exciting. This is a support that Indiana teachers need. Like, there's so many things that we do that teachers feel like we do to them, and this is something that we've done with them. So this is beyond exciting to me. I love that number's at 21,000. I think the goal was 10,000 by 23.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like don't quote me on that number. I'm sure you know it.
It's their team and partners have pushed it.
But to see how it's exploded
School
once the
leaders.
DOE partnered with it has been awesome. So good work. It's awesome.
Anyone
And anyone
else?
that's not enrolled, teachers, do so.
Is BJ Watts enrolled? Can you check that?
I will check.
Don't put me on the spot. I don't know if I am. I think I am.
I like that. I
think
just,
I am.
I feel like I need it. Any other questions? Erica, yes?
I'm enrolled, and I love it. It doesn't matter how many years you've been in education. Every time you get on one of these sessions, you learn something. So I also encourage educators to get on there. I send teachers all the time. It's amazing. You guys have done an amazing job.
Thank you, Erica. Any other comments? Well, I tell you what, sure appreciate all your work, all the team, all the partners. And at this time, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion, second, all in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned. One of these days, someone's going to oppose that vote.